Imagine a world where the streets pulse with a singular, unyielding demand, not for a new leader, but for an end to leadership as we know it, a whisper that grew into a roar, echoing from coast to coast through bustling cities and quiet towns. This isn't a scene from a dystopian novel. This is a story of a No Kings protest, a seismic social movement that didn't just sweep through one city or one state, but all 50 of them. What started as a fringe idea blossomed into a national phenomenon, uniting millions under a banner of absolute autonomy. How did a seemingly radical concept capture the hearts and minds of an entire nation? How did it ignite a firestorm of dissent that transcended political divides and shattered conventional notions of power? Join us as we unravel the unprecedented journey of a protest unlike any other. The genesis, from hashtag to horizon. The year 2042 was supposed to be a year of quiet recovery, a return to normalcy after a decade of fluctuating economic stability and social unrest. But beneath the surface, a different current was stirring. It began, as many modern movements do, in the digital ether. A cryptic hashtag, No Kings, started appearing on fringe forums and encrypted messaging apps. Initially dismissed as another fleeting online trend, its message was stark, an absolute rejection of centralized authority, a call for radical decentralization in all facets of life. No more reliance on distant politicians, no more corporate overlords, no more kings dictating the lives of ordinary citizens. The concept, though simple, was profoundly disruptive. It tapped into a deep well of distrust and disillusionment that had been brewing for years, a widespread feeling that the systems in place no longer served the people they were designed to govern. The early adopters of hashtag No Kings were a diverse group: disillusioned tech workers, frustrated small business owners, young activists weary of incremental change, and even a surprising number of civic-minded retirees who felt their voices had been increasingly ignored. They shared a common conviction: that true freedom lay not in electing better rulers, but in dismantling the very notion of rulership itself. They organized in decentralized networks, mirroring the very philosophy they espoused. There were no designated leaders, no central committee, just self-organizing cells communicating through secure channels, sharing ideas and planning their first, seemingly audacious, steps. The spark ignites. First rumbles in the Rust Belt. The first physical manifestations of the No Kings movement were not in the traditional protest hotbeds in New York or Washington, D.C., but in unexpected places. The Rust Belt, reeling from decades of industrial decline and feeling forgotten by federal policies, became an unlikely incubator. A series of small, unannounced gatherings began in public squares and community centers. Participants wore simple, unadorned clothing, often with a stylized crown emblem, broken or crossed out, to symbolize their rejection. They carried no banners bearing specific policy demands, only signs emblazoned with the stark, two-word declaration: No Kings. These initial protests were peaceful, almost meditative. People stood in silence, sometimes for hours, simply being present. The power was in collective stillness, the visual impact of dozens, then hundreds, then thousands, silently rejecting the status quo. Local media initially struggled to categorize it. It wasn't about a specific bill, a particular politician, or even a singular injustice. It was about something far more fundamental. This lack of specific target, ironically, made it harder for authorities to dismiss or co-opt. The viral surge, from local echoes to national crescendo, what truly propelled the No Kings movement into the national consciousness was its unique blend of digital savvy and raw, undeniable authenticity. Citizen journalists, using encrypted live streams and decentralized media platforms, bypassed traditional news gatekeepers, broadcasting the silent, powerful gatherings directly to millions. The images were compelling. Ordinary people, standing shoulder to shoulder, their faces reflecting a quiet determination. There were no fiery speeches, no violent clashes, just a profound, shared understanding. The movement's growth was exponential. Within weeks, the No Kings gatherings had spread from the Rust Belt to the West Coast, then down to the Sun Belt, and finally across the Northeast. Each new city that saw a protest seemed to inspire two more. College campuses erupted, not with calls for tuition reform, but with demands for student autonomy. Urban centers saw flash mobs appear in financial districts, not to protest a specific bank, but the entire system of economic centralization. The traditional media, initially skeptical, could no longer ignore the undeniable phenomenon. News channels began running segments, trying to explain the unexplainable, interviewing participants who articulated a surprisingly coherent vision of a truly decentralized society. The 50-state phenomenon, an unprecedented display. The pinnacle of the movement's power came on October 27, 2042, the day that would forever be known as the Million March. Through their decentralized networks, the No Kings participants had coordinated a simultaneous demonstration in every single state capital and in hundreds of major cities across the nation. It was a logistical marvel, executed without a central command. Millions took to the streets, a sea of broken crowns and No King signs stretching for miles. From Juneau, Alaska to Miami, Florida, from Augusta, Maine to Honolulu, Hawaii, the message was uniform. In some cities, crowds were so dense that public transportation ground to a halt. The sheer scale was breathtaking. It wasn't a protest against a particular king, but against the very idea of a king, against any singular, dominant power structure that claimed ultimate authority over individuals. The impact was immediate and profound. Political analysts, historians, and social scientists scrambled to understand this unprecedented display of unity and radical individualism. Aftermath and legacy. A quiet revolution? The No Kings protest didn't lead to an overnight collapse of government or a sudden shift to anarcho-syndicalism. Its impact was far more nuanced and arguably more enduring. The sheer fact that millions of ordinary citizens could self-organize across an entire continent without traditional leadership became a powerful testament to collective action and individual agency. In the months and years that followed, there was a noticeable shift in public discourse. Demands for local control intensified. Community-led initiatives for everything from energy grids to food production gained traction. There was a renewed emphasis on civic participation at the hyperlocal level, bypassing larger, more centralized institutions. Businesses that embraced decentralized models, empowering employees and customers, saw a surge in popularity. Governments, both state and federal, found themselves facing an electorate that was more skeptical, more demanding of transparency, and less willing to simply accept top-down directives. The No Kings movement didn't overthrow institutions in a violent revolution. Instead, it seeded a quiet, persistent revolution in thought. It proved that radical decentralization wasn't just a utopian ideal, but a powerful, achievable mode of collective action. It reshaped the public's perception of power, inspiring a generation to question who held it and why. The streets may have cleared and the crowds dispersed, but the resonant echo of No Kings continued to reverberate to the halls of power and the quiet corners of every American's mind, a constant reminder that true authority, ultimately, rests with the people themselves. The protest may have swept across 50 states, but its legacy was sown deep into the soil of the nation, forever altering its understanding of governance and self-determination.